You're not a killer. You have to be a killer.
Hello there, and welcome to my channel. This video will be taking a serious look at how Andy Burnham will fare in the current Labour Party. If you like what you hear here, consider a sub and a like. If you disagree, leave your wonderful comments down below. I promise to respond. With that said, let's begin. There is a lot dependent on Andy Burnham winning the upcoming Makerfield elections. For it's an open secret that once he gets in, the leadership competition for the Labour Party will begin in earnest for the so-called soul of the Labour Party. We know Starmer intends to contest it, with West Streeting also involved, but the clear favourite is still Burnham, the man regarded as the darling of the centre-left in the party and affectionately titled the King of the North. Now I want you to understand that I like Burnham. I think his policies can be beneficial for the Labour Party, considering the utterly poor job done by the Starmer regime so far. A rise in youth unemployment, broken manifesto promises, and tone-deaf policies are all in line with the Tory party, and it has been seen as a betrayal of the centre-left policies that the once great party was known for. And I will freely admit that if Burnham can bring a bit of his tactics and experience to the party, I think Labour voters who are currently defecting will most likely consider coming back. Furthermore, Burnham seems like the kind of person who can galvanize the left and centre of his party and would be willing to go across party lines to work with other parties such as the Greens in order to enact policies that would be beneficial for our current ailing population to get some much needed relief. But therein lies the problem. For under the broad church of the Labour Party, it's the right-leaning side that is currently in charge. And all levers of policy is firmly within their grasp. And by all indicators so far, Labour's policies are fine-tuned to be favourable to big business and capital markets. So while Burnham might fancy himself a messiah and has been campaigning that way, those who hold influence within the party are more likely to favour and be loyal to West Streeting, whom they consider as the person who would be in favour of their current policies, and also likely to bring in other Tory-like policies such as North Sea oil drilling and AI-powered infrastructure to the NHS. To paraphrase Kemi Badenoch, they do like the current policies, but it's the salesman, i.e. Starmer, that they don't like. And that is the danger facing the King of the North if he makes his way to Westminster. For you do need to be a killer and have impeccable killer instincts to survive as a Prime Minister in modern-day Westminster. And Burnham strikes me very much as a good man. And we have had a good man before in Jeremy Corbyn, and you all bore witness to how it ended there for him. So what do I mean by all of this? Well, let's delve deeper then.
Continue.
To give you an understanding of the perils facing Burnham, let me first take you back to his potential template in Jeremy Corbyn. In 2015, Corbyn was only put in as a candidate to be Labour leader as a bit of a joke. He was the token left candidate to be used by the party leadership to show that they cared for leftist opinions too. But this backfired, as the left of the party voted for him in droves, as opposed to the favourite at the time, Andy Burnham. This was a shocking event, as the man who wrote the manifesto on why the UK should leave the EU had become leader at a time when there was a referendum coming on staying or leaving. As an olive branch of the party, Corbyn would sacrifice his own principles and back the Remain campaign. You can say this was an old man's perspective changing over the years, but to some within the party, this was his original sin. For in June 2015, Labour MP John Clark had formed an organisation called Common Good Labour, which would be renamed Labour Together on the 1st of September 2015. Keep that name in mind for now. Corbyn's leadership would be disliked due to the people he chose in the shadow cabinet, as most were of his ideological bent. Andy Burnham was at the time a part of the shadow cabinet as the shadow Home Secretary. But he would resign in 2016, citing the reason of going to focus on his campaign for the Manchester mayoral elections. But all indications point to a disagreement with Corbyn's migration policies and general policies that were steeped in leftist leanings. Corbyn would face a leadership challenge by Owen Smith in 2016, citing his perceived mishandling of the Remain campaign under Corbyn's leadership.
Jeremy Corbyn has always said we need to listen to the members and make sure that their voice is heard in the leadership at the top of the party, and I agree with him about that. The problem is that the members agree with me on this issue in the majority. They believe that we should be staying in the customs union and the single market, and they believe that in the event of the true terms of the deal becoming clear to everybody, the right thing to do is either at a general election or in a poll of the country to put that question to the people once more.
Corbyn, after winning 62% of the votes, will lean much further into his leftist ideology, when most would consider in hindsight that this was the moment to bring in the centre. In 2017, Morgan McSweeney would become director of a restructured Labour Together with some very key members of the party. This included Josh Simmons, John Cruddas, Lisa Nandy, Jonathan Ashworth, Steve Reed, Shabana Mahmood, and Trevor Chin, with the clear goal of removing Corbyn from power, even if it meant losing a general election, and install a figurehead they could control, as in Keir Starmer, to be the new leader. They will campaign based on Corbynism and later betray it for capital-friendly right-leaning policies.
It is the honour and the privilege of my life to be elected as leader of the Labour Party. I want to thank Rebecca and Lisa for running such passionate and powerful campaigns and for their friendship and support along the way. I want to pay tribute to Jeremy Corbyn, who led our party through some really difficult times, who energised our movement, and who's a friend as well as a colleague. And to all of our members, supporters and affiliates, I say this: whether you voted for me or not, I will represent you, I will listen to you, and I will bring our party together. But we have to face the future with honesty. Anti-Semitism has been a stain on our party. On behalf of the Labour Party, I am sorry. And I will tear out this poison by its roots and judge success by the return of our Jewish members and those who felt that they could no longer support us.
This was an extremely messy affair that would require its own in-depth video in the future. But just know that the tactics used to smear Corbyn, and for that matter their own party, was brutal. But long story short, they succeeded and Starmer was installed. Most of the key members of this organization are now in positions within the party that gains them near complete control over party affairs. And Wes Streeton is closely linked to these people through that very organization. This is what emboldened him to act against Starmer, because he does have the backing and confidence of these kingmakers. And he is now the person that Burnham will be facing in a leadership contest. I have discussed Streeton already. See that video for details if you want. So now, let's take a look at Andy Burnham.
Interesting.
On the campaign trail, Andy Burnham has been painting himself as the only person who can save the Labour Party and fix all the problems wrong with Westminster, as long as he's the Prime Minister, of course.
Of course!
His unveiled logo even attests to this frankly delusional view of his own abilities. The only thing missing right now are people in the streets throwing palm leaves on the floor as he rides in on a donkey and Emily Thornberry offers to wash his feet with oil. Being the new Jesus must be very tiring. But it's his promises and U-turns that seems to be a major red flag in my book.
Your critics in the Labour Party, particularly on social media, they always talk about you flip-flopping. They say you were opposed to the welfare cuts, but you abstained on them. You said don't attack Jeremy Corbyn, but then you said he lacked credibility. I mean, do you plead at all guilty to any of that?
I think you probably need to spend less time on social media, Christian, and talking to people.
That's certainly true, yeah.
Because
First, he's for rejoining the EU, but now, maybe not so much. He's all for migration and wants to lower taxes, but then he's all about retaining Shabana Mahmood and possibly keeping the Ice Queen Rachel Reeves in place. He's all for nationalisation, yet has been steadily cozying up to the capital markets with subtle sweet talks. I am getting a distinct feel of the second Starmer in the making here, but maybe I could be wrong. At least Wes Streeton is sticking with his guns on his policies, but I digress. I want you to understand that he's making all these overtures to the kingmakers of the Labour Party in a bid not to be hampered during his leadership play. Mostly because he hasn't been in Westminster for nearly a decade, and right now, the powers that be were not those that were in charge during his time as an MP. Josh Simmons, who stepped down to give him a shot at the title in Makerfield, is a member of Labour Together. But also understand that what Burnham wants to achieve and what the entrenched right of the party wants are not the same thing. And that, my friend, is where the danger stems from. At this point, Burnham is riding the wave of his popularity for his work in Manchester. And to be fair, he has done okay. But the heart of government in Westminster is not the same as being a metropolitan mayor. And given the state of the nation, once he wins the elections, you would find that the shine and polish he rode in on will wash away like teardrops in rain.
All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears in rain.
For the spotlight is a very different beast, and there is no man without sin. And I am sorry to tell you that King Burnham also has a few skeletons in his closet.
I can just say to you that I agonised about that decision, and in the end, the reason I voted for military action was because the leader of the Iraqi Kurds came to Parliament and pleaded with us not to back down. He said that if you leave Saddam emboldened, that will just be misery for our people. And I think, what they may not really be fair about, the people who make those claims, is that this isn't a kind of black or white situation. If we had left Saddam in place at that time, other people would have suffered. There wasn't a kind of easy answer, was there?
There kind of was an easy answer. Don't invade a sovereign country.
If you were privy to the released Mandos and WhatsApp messages, then I am sure by now you understand the type of vipers that are in charge of the Labour Party. Even Mr. Steadyhands himself, Pat McFadden, seems to enjoy a very good gossip about the man he's supposed to be protecting in the public eye. So let me ask you this simple question. What makes you think that Burnham will fare any different after ingratiating himself with this group? Yes, he might easily win a leadership contest if the opponents are Starmer and Streeton, because by all accounts, him being in charge will rehabilitate the image of the Labour Party. But remember the fallout that resulted from the resignation of Boris and the installation of the letters by Tory party vote?
I am a fighter and not a quitter.
I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected. I am resigning.
And later Sunak by proclamation? Well, that same scenario is likely to play here, because without a true mandate from a general election, Burnham will have his authority over the party questioned. And although the media might choose to ignore it, this is not an oversight that those in power within Labour, and for that matter the Tories, would. And regardless of the smiles and niceties, when it comes to the kingmakers, the clear favourite they want in charge is Stowe Streeton, along with his donor networks and connections. And here is the hint to why. Right now, Reform has the biggest donorship network in Westminster, far surpassing any party in Westminster's history. In politics as in life, cash is king. And given the revolutionary underpinnings with Burnham's campaign, this is a fait accompli. I also want you to understand that within any organization, it's not the majority that rules, but rather the minority whom power flows to. This is what is often called the tyranny of the minority. This is why government policies are often shaped by a few billionaires and mega donors. And with people like Steve Reed, Shabana Mahmood, Jess Phillips, and good old Pat, well, it's fair to say that the many promises of Burnham will simply be that. Empty promises. So if you're one of those that think that Burnham coming into Westminster will be a glorious wedding of the left and the centre of the party at the cost of the right faction, then know that all that is being prepared is a red wedding for our Messiah and groom. I know we all love messiahs, but the point of them is to be a sacrifice for the betterment of the cause. I mean, after all, wasn't Jesus himself apparently crucified for our sins, and Che Guevara allowed to die for the benefit of the Castro regime? And fortunately for our embattled Labour Party, there is already a true progressive actively copying Kemi Badenoch's homework, who just so happens to be a perfect fit for the leadership role. Very skilled in guerrilla tactics from his time at Cambridge, and definitely has the killer instincts to take the fight to the Tories and reform. And his name is the Weasel, Streeton. Mark my words on this and save this video for posterity, for you will live to watch this play out. So it's only fitting that I close out this video with a short poem for Mr. Burnham. Oh, the King of the North comes to the house of the phrase, and how we praise, But as he rides on his drums, the hymns we hear is the songs of the rains of Castamere. Thank you for your time, and as always, till next time, friends.